Hello everybody, I'm Alex Nogales. I'm the President and CEO of the National Hispanic Media Coalition. And today I want to talk to you about three different issues. The first one is a terrible one, a horrible one, but it has to be talked about. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, just came out with a report. It was issued October the 23rd, talking about immigrants targeted, extremist rhetoric moves into the mainstream. That's the title of the report. And what it talks about is what many of us had feared, and that is the following. You will remember that we had a tremendous immigration debate, and there were good arguments on both sides. They were valid, they were sincere, there were good points to be said by everyone. Now there was a third factor that was in there causing a great many problems, and these were the extremist groups, and they continue to do the same thing. First and foremost among them was FAIR. And you will remember that FAIR stands for the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Sounds like a very legitimate group, sounds like they're doing the right thing. They have been around for many, many years, and in many ways, subtle and not so subtle, they have been very prejudicial and discriminatory towards all immigrants, specifically Hispanic immigrants. They have now spawned many other organizations that are not as subtle, that in fact have come down in ways that are terrible to behold and hear. Among them, you have the Dustin Inman Society out of Georgia, Mothers Against Illegal Immigrants, Choose Black America, You Don't Speak for Me. Choose Black America, of course, has African American. You Don't Stand for Me, much of that leadership is Latino. You wonder, what are these people thinking? Do they hate themselves so much that they have to project their insecurities and their self-hate onto organizations that speak violently and racially against Latinos and other people of color? In any case, FAIR is to be held responsible and accountable for all of these groups that they're putting up to send out this terrible rhetoric, bigoted and racist against people of color, and very specifically against Latinos. If you hear their messages, you will find out that they're talking about the fact that Mexicans are coming across the border, that we're going to take over the southwestern states. I mean, preposterous concepts such as this, that we're bringing in disease, that we have more criminals than anybody else. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And what you gather from listening to them, and I've listened to them for years, but it's never been this bad, is that they're very racist motivated. And it's even crept into mainstream, okay, and it's going around all of the time. All of these groups are now basking in the sun. They're meeting with senators, they're meeting with people from the House of Representatives, they're meeting with other organized groups, and you know, it's become like acceptable to listen to their hate messages. It's terrible. Now, on television, you have someone that is highly respected in more ways than one, and that's Lou Dobbs. And Lou Dobbs is saying very unresponsible things that don't have a basis in fact. Like, for example, that in the years 2003 up to 2007, there were over 7,000 cases of leprosy reported. The majority of them were, not the majority of them, that all of them were people that were here undocumented, when in fact the government came back and said, no, 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 you have it all wrong. It's not 7,000 cases in 3 years, 4 years, it is 7,000 plus cases in over 30 years. So there's a big difference. He never did apologize for that one. He just said, well, I got my research from such and such. A person who is incidentally very much on the prejudicial side, that has helped these other groups with their research as well. I bring attention to this report because it's got to be a wake-up call. The ADL has already on 2 previous occasions said that hate crimes against Latinos are increasing. We find anecdotally and otherwise the same thing. Other groups that we work with are finding identically the same thing. We are going to have to do something about this because it cannot be unchecked. Americans, all of us, do not stand for prejudice. We don't stand for discriminatory actions. We don't stand for what these people are standing for. And so all Americans, all of us, we have a responsibility to stand up for what is right. And what is right is what is right, what is righteous, what is positive, what is reasonable for all the parties concerned. So, with that said, We're going to be working with these organizations to expose these people that are fanning the flames of hatred, of xenophobia, and we're going to be going to a different place with our educators, with our Congress people, so that in fact this stops and goes back to where it should be on a reasonable scale that we can all understand and continue to have an immigration reform debate, because there is where this is going to be settled. I thank you very much, and I'll be back in a minute with the next issue. Welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to be discussing minority ownership of media properties. As many of you know, the FCC chairman, Kevin Martin, has proposed an accelerated agenda on this issue with a vote taking place December the 18th. The last time a chairperson decided that he was going to accelerate a vote on this matter, it was voted down by the courts. Congress put a lot of pressure on the FCC, and over 3 million Americans said the same thing and registered their disapproval. What is at stake here is that if you have too much concentration of media ownership, you will have 5, 6, or 7 players owning all of media, giving us very little diversity. That cannot happen. Minority ownership is at risk. As it is, we own very few of the media properties around. Just to give you an example of how bad the situation is, let me quote from Free Press. Free Press has already come out on a first study on broadcast stations that only 1.1% of the full power commercial television stations are owned by Latinos. In their second report on radio, they documented that Latinos own just 2.9% of full power commercial radio stations. We know very well that if this is allowed to continue, this vote, and that if in fact it goes the way that the chairman wants it to go, and remember that there's 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and normally they vote as a bloc, that what's going to happen, you're going to have a consolidation of media ownership, there's going to be less voices, and minorities are going to be locked out from future ownership of broadcast properties, of radio properties, and this is not good for anyone. We live in a very diverse nation. 33% of the nation is now minority, is ethnic, and therefore we deserve a voice, and so we're very firmly against the chairman's desire to in fact have these large corporations own not only radio stations, not only television stations, but also print. And by that I mean the local newspapers. So all in one market. So that's not good. That is not diversity at its best, and we have to reject that argument. We need to really think this out. We need the American people to weigh in. We need to know that in fact, in some fashion, minority media owners are going to be taking part in this whole sale, giving away, or selling of properties.